and welcome back to Carl and Rick Talk Risk. Hey, Rick.
How?
For the audience, this is our second podcast today, so we've been on the line a while.
See, Carl is goofing off, and he's taking off all this time, and so we have to stack them up. It's horrendous. He's making me work hard.
I'm on
I'm going to
vacation,
be
Rick.
talking to this dude for 40 minutes today.
You'll miss
this
me
is
for 2
painful.
weeks. Yeah. Well, we're gonna switch places, Rick. Not you and me, but we thought
I'd
of a
actually
little.
like to go to Holland this weekend.
Hey, I would be getting away from my. Yeah, no, I would say it. I was thinking about Nova Scotia yesterday. We were taking a walk back from the daycare, and I was looking at all the trees, and some of them were getting a little brown and tattered. We're going into fall, and I was thinking about the lovely forests of Nova Scotia and the turning of the leaves and how beautiful it is. So I actually was thinking about Nova Scotia.
Now, we're still green right now. In another 2 weeks, so it'll probably be quite pretty to be here.
Yeah. I miss my fireplace and the turning of the leaves. That's what and of course your delightful company, Rick. Those are the things I miss.
Oh, man. It's coming thick and heavy now, folks. We need a trigger warning for this.
Okay, we're going to be switching places and thinking through what would happen. But we're going to be having the risk management department switch with the front office. And when I say front office, I mean traders and portfolio managers. So we're talking about.
Let me tell what bank that's happening at so I can short their stock before,
Yeah, exactly.
before it actually happens.
Okay, well, you're going to have to explain why now, Rick. Okay, let me kick it off. And then you say what you think about what I think would happen. And then we can reverse it. And you give me what would happen. So, Rick, first of all, I like to self-criticize. I like to introspect. Okay, so I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that stuff would get done in risk management, in front office, switch places with us. The front office is known as being a bit of cowboys. I think you've been on both sides. You started in derivatives.
I've never actually been in risk management. I've done a lot of training for risk management, and I've done a lot of writing about risk management in financial institutions, and I've acted as the go-between in many different ways. But I've never actually worked in risk management.
I forget that, and I've only worked in risk management. So, yeah.
Now, obviously, I've been on the trading floor, and I've headed up, a trading operation, so I had to deal with both sides. But
yeah. But okay, so let me finish. What I think would happen is stuff would get done in risk management because the front office doesn't sit idle. They don't wait to hear the opinions of every single stakeholder before they move. Stuff would get done. Policies would be shorter. They would be precise. They would enable the business to get done what it needed to make a profit. But you know what would happen? The regulatory fines would follow. That's what I think would happen.
What I think would happen is, first off, I should say I'm a little bit dated here because, when I was on a trading floor, things have changed so much in the last 10 years. Okay. This would be a very, very, very different conversation 10 years ago, and it would be a very different conversation 20 years ago.
Right.
Okay. Very different. I think that you'd be shocked. I think that a lot of the actions of both the front office and of the risk management department is set by the context. And I think of the old famous Stanford prison experiment, where you tell virtually identical students that one group randomly chosen are prisoners and one group randomly chosen are prison guards, and they immediately take on different personas. So undoubtedly, a lot of people would be very, very uncomfortable in their positions. if there
Mhm.
was a swap. It would be particularly interesting if half of the front office swapped with half of the risk unit, so there was still an original group of each. And maybe, gee, maybe I could find a bank to do this, and this could be a great academic paper. But anyhow, I digress. I think what would happen is that the top of the house would come down, i.e., the sea level suite would come down uh, on both sides uh, before anything disastrous happened.
Mhm.
Um, Ironically, I suspect the traders would be very good, and here I'm going to get the ire of regulators up. But in my experience, the traders are such good salespeople slash bullshitters that they would be able to spin the regulators around that would take the regulators a while to figure out what was there. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I, and again, I'm going to get us in trouble for this and probably get put on a blacklist, but I always used to say that the day I couldn't run circles around a regulator was the day that I really ought to be put in a box and put 6 feet under. Um, and it's because regulators have very, very, very different objectives than traders, and risk managers have very, very different objectives
Mhm.
uh, as well from those two. And if you gave them the same set of objectives, you might actually surprise. After a very short period of time, people might actually surprise you.
Mhm.
Risk, trading, and this goes back to my comment about how this would be a very different conversation 10 years ago and then very different 20 and 30 years ago um, when I started. But trading, contrary to the Hollywood view of it, is actually really quite disciplined, albeit disciplined in a different fashion and disciplined in terms of the metrics that they look at, but it's actually pretty disciplined. And uh, and although it looks at different information and looks at it much more quickly,
Mhm.
they are nuanced in very, very, very different ways. And so I, perhaps maybe mainly to make conversation, I think that things would pretty much shift into form if you gave them what their objectives were.
Oh, okay. I wonder if that's because you're from the front office. So,
I will
I
say, one little bit of bias just to rile you up. I
yeah.
think that the traders would have a far easier time adjusting than the risk managers would.
Oh yeah. I totally agree. I think the pace of the work and the types of pressure would be tough for a risk manager going into the front office. I very much agree. I, I want to tell you a quick anecdote I heard from a colleague recently. They were considering a career switch. They've worked in the second line most of their career, and they were thinking about getting into front office, doing some trading. And so they spoke with the hiring manager at their firm, and the person told them almost very, very quickly in the conversation, listen, we hire young and we train people to learn the instincts behind trading. We don't hire people who haven't been doing this for a long time. Um, and he didn't even seem to care about education level. So he was really thinking that your neurons are still getting structured and you have time to really get this deeply into you so that you understand and you can react. That was pretty interesting to me. I hadn't really thought about it that way. So another reason why risk managers would struggle because we are naturally. I always like to say I like to step back. I like to be in that like a little bit distant mode, but you can't be like that in the front office. You are
I really think it depends upon what type of field you're in and what type of trading that you're doing.
okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously there's some things where that uh, trading by instinct still works. There's a lot of parts, like for example, certain parts of structured securities and derivatives where it absolutely positively does not. I think that the understanding of people, ironically, is much greater amongst traders than is about amongst risk managers. The ability to deal with bullshit and uh, extraneous information is 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 very 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 different.
Mhm.
Um, you you know an interesting point is the most dangerous people, and I'm going to pick up on Nick Gleason for this. Most dangerous people who are those who are in risk management who do go to front office, because if they do want to be a cheat, they know exactly where all the weak holes are.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
know how to game the system, or at least game the system internally, far better than anyone else.
Mhm.
So those are potentially dangerous situations if you want to go from risk management to trading.
Mhm. Yeah, that's the incentive structure is very different, right? Obviously, front office gets a commission. It gets paid up for performance, right? How much profit you make translates into your final paycheck. Whereas
Yeah.
risk managers, yeah, okay, we do better if the bank does better or the asset manager, but um,
I always used to tell my students difference between a commercial banker and investment banker is commercial banker goes in every morning asking, how much can we lose? And investment banker goes in asking, how much can we make?
yeah,
That's kind of the difference between risk management and trading.
yeah, yeah. A, a bit random, but how do you think the front office would deal with having to get consensus among so many stakeholders to set up policies and limits and so on? How would they approach it? Do you think they would do any better than
Oh,
a typical
basically, they
risk
have to do
manager?
that now with you a-holes in risk management.
A little, yeah, a little bit, but okay. Yeah, maybe they do. I mean, like I said, I've never been in the front office. I just think,
Here's the point: traders are very good. If
yeah,
you show them where the guardrails are, they're very good at driving within a millimeter of them or a nanometer of them.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, if you tell them what the guardrails are, most of them will stay within the guardrails, and they don't care where the guardrails are. Now they'll go like heck through them or along them, and they'll get scarily close to them. But and every trader, contrary to myth, or good traders, they all have a switch in their head. They all have very well honed risk management skills.
yeah.
Okay. Uh, in fact, I would argue that they have better risk management skills than the vast majority of risk managers. Now, simply because they're not calculating it to the nth decimal point, and simply because they're not logging it, but intuitively they know they have a very good sense of what their risk is, and what makes them traders, what makes them
Hmm.
good traders is they also have a very good sense of what the market's current opinion on the market's current level of risk is.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
And
it's
and
not like they're without risk skills. It's not like they're not thinking about risk. I think it's a total misconception that traders don't think about risk. Now,
mhm,
the traders themselves might not say that they think about risk, but if you look at their actions, they are
yeah,
they're very risk attuned.
yeah. No, I agree with that. They also know when the tide is turning and when to really pay attention and limit risk and so on. So
Where they're
that's when I
different is sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
No. Well, I was always fascinated being in the second line, working close in physical proximity to the traders. That when it's a Fed decision coming up, right? It's silent. So like they know when to pay attention and yeah, when the risk is shifting. So yeah, go ahead.
One of the differences is in the definition of risk.
Mm.
Okay. Traders use my definition of risk, which, by the way, I've written about a lot. And, I do use in my class. And that is risk is the possibility that bad or good things may happen. Whereas the risk manager is basically, in large part through regulation, given the definition of risk is the possibility that bad things may happen. It's a very, very important difference in the definition. And that's what separates a trader from a risk manager.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to quickly get back to your point because I really liked it. That traders arguably have a better sense of risk because they're experiencing it. They see it every day. They might not talk about it in the articulate way that risk managers do, or they might not have the same language for it. You know, and then you mentioned they might not know it to the nth decimal places and so on. But then, I think of how risk managers go around about setting limits. First of all, we rely on the front office to propose something, right? And work in, medium-term plans and budgets and blah, 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 and tell us, like, what do you think the limit should be? A. B, I think the first conversation we ever had was about risk tolerance, risk appetite, how do they relate, and so on. And I mean, this is common to all banks, but what you have is a qualitative statement per risk type about what types of risk and how much you want to take. And you then translate that qualitative statement into numbers, key risk indicators and supporting metrics and limits and so on. And you cascade it all the way down and you get to the business areas and the desks themselves. But of course there's a jump, right? From qualitative to quantitative. So yeah, everything needs to point in the same direction. You can't say you have a unlimited risk tolerance for something and then set a very low limit on it. But you're still taking a leap there. So there might be a lot of decimals, but that doesn't mean accuracy.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, very interesting. We should make it happen, Rick. We should find a guinea pig bank that is willing to do this. It's an
That
intriguing
would be
idea.
an award-winning research paper.
Yeah. All right. Well, good chatting with you. And I'm on vacation for 2 weeks, but I will see everybody in a couple of weeks. Rick, looking forward to our next conversation.
Have
Until
fun,
then.
everyone. Take care.